Hello and welcome to Scott Schilling Speaks. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. Excited about today's show because we're going to learn some things that we need to know. You may not want to hear what you're going to hear, but you need to hear it so you know it. My guest today is a CPA. He's a small business architect. He's an entrepreneur. He's just a guy that helps people build business. Joe DiChiara, thank you for joining me here on Scott Schilling Speaks.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Well, really want to hear what you have to say because as we were getting ready for the show, I said, what do you want to talk about? And he said, we've got to talk about the IRS. Now, probably most people's favorite subject, so it couldn't get any happier than that. No, just want to make sure. Again, sometimes you need to know some information. And so what is it you want to share about the IRS today?
Well, first, let me say I've been doing this for over 41 years, and I've handled hundreds of individual and tax audits. I work directly with the IRS. I have a very good understanding of how the system works, the audit system, how to appeal, how to go to tax court if you don't like what they're saying. So that, I'm sort of like a student of the government architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing, people have to understand is that the IRS has a mission. They're structured into 4 different divisions, and one of them is the small business and self-employed division. And that's who I usually deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And their mission is to collect money. They target unfiled returns, underreporting, and what's the other one? Underpaying. And that means, underreporting, either you're not reporting all your income or you're overstating your expenses. Not filing there's a lot of people not filing, especially this year because of COVID. If people owed money and they were collecting unemployment, they just didn't have the money. And then they start a whole vicious cycle of not filing, because once you don't file 1 year, that's my experience. You wind up 5 years later and you haven't filed. And the other area is the underpayment. That's people that filed but didn't pay. So the IRS's main mission, they're not the government, and they're here to help us. They're here to police us and make sure that we pay more than our fair share. And when I say more, I'm talking about solopreneurs and self-employed individuals. I spend a lot of time educating sole proprietors on why they need to incorporate, because that helps you fly under the radar. Okay, a self-employed person making 100, 150 grand a year, you will automatically get a red flag, because the IRS knows a lot of self-employed solopreneurs, sole proprietors, they're filing a Schedule C, which is combined with their personal return. And a lot of them don't ever hire an accountant, and they do their own return, and they don't know about books and records. So it's like easy picking. It's like shooting a fish in a barrel.
Yeah, I have been, and I have shared from stage many times, actually. Number one, I think everybody should have a side gig. Everybody should have their own business. And one of the reasons they should have their business is so they can incorporate or create an LLC or an S Corp, or if it's big enough, a C Corp, so that they can incorporate and get away from sole proprietorships and things like that, because the government, the IRS rules do not look at solopreneurs very favorably. In fact, the least favorable of all choices.
Yeah, and we could go into a whole different discussion about why S Corps were created. It was really created to protect sole proprietors, but they didn't bother telling anybody that because out of 30 million businesses in the US, 25 million are still sole proprietors. And they get overtaxed, they get no tax benefits, they're unprotected. And another misconception is LLCs They don't do anything for your taxes. LLCs give you legal protection,
Right.
but everybody is doing LLCs. I can't tell you how many LLCs we've converted into S corps, because S corps give you a lot of tax benefits, a lot of advantages. You can do stuff that you can't do as a sole proprietor. For instance, a sole proprietor, if they make $10,000, let's say 20,000, which is below the poverty level, they still got to pay over $3,000 in self-employment taxes.
Wow.
If that's an S corp, you don't have to pay that. Now, accountants might say, well, then you got to take a salary. No, that's not enough money to even justify taking a salary. And I want to see the IRS come in and say, oh, you made 20,000, you should have been an employee. That never happens. It's just not worth their time and effort. But what's happening now, let's just say, let's just accept the fact that the IRS was broken before. They're underfunded. And I really feel for the IRS employees. My aunt worked for them for 25 years. They're just trying to do a job. But if your organization is underfunded, it's hard to do a job.
Certainly.
So, that was the first problem. The second problem is when COVID hit, an organization that was already broken has been decimated. I mean, totally decimated. And it's my belief that they actually got hacked.
Really?
Because the IRS gets, oh yeah. Yeah, because some of the things that are happening don't make any sense. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I have a client that owed $34,000. She paid them on April 1st electronically, the same way she always did. She used her social security number. She's married, filing joint. She got a letter saying she owed $34,000 plus interest and penalties. Now, normally, I would be able to write a letter, give them proof of payment, and it would be done. Well, you can't write to them anymore because they're not opening the mail.
Wow.
They're not opening the mail. And then what happens is that the letter is sitting there and it gets to the point where they say, we're just going to take the money out of your bank account. The only option is to give me a power of attorney, but then they got to pay me for my time, because I would be overwhelmed with a lot of clients are just having problems. The only solution is to have my client call them directly. And trying to get through is a job and a half.
No doubt about that.
She did it. She said it took 3 hours. She was probably on hold for 2.5 hours, but she finally got through. Now, if anybody wants to call the IRS, I'll give you a little trick. You call them on Wednesdays at 7:58 in the morning, because that's the lowest amount of call volume that they get, and you get to be in the key in the first. You get to be up there. If you call in the afternoon, you'll be on hold for 3 hours. So she gets through. Now, she paid on April 1st. They didn't post the payment until June 1st, which makes absolutely no sense at all, because this is a system. It's a computer program. The only way that happens if it was manually entered.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. There's a lot of things being manually handled because the system is just broken. It was antiquated to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I want to make sure of it, because we've got your expertise here, but one of the things that made the most sense to me early on when I started learning things about tax code and whatever, there's actually a couple of things. Number one is you're obligated to pay the least legal amount. That's it. You're not obligated to pay as much as you possibly can. It's the least legal amount. That is what the code says. And the other thing is, there's a simple way of looking at this. You can earn your money, pay your taxes, and spend what's left, or you can earn your money, be incorporated, spend your money, and pay taxes on what's left. Well, the second one is far more preferable if you're good at math at all from that side, right? And that's why you as an accountant and a small business architect become so important in working with people to convey little pieces of information that sounds fairly unimportant maybe to some, but that's a huge difference, isn't it?
Absolutely. People complain about the wealthy and, what they do. They're just following the laws. There was an article about a month ago put out, and it's being widely distributed. They took the 25 richest people in the world, in America, and got their tax records. And people like Jeff Bezos went like 3 years in a row without paying any taxes. And the way they do it is through structure with corporations by not taking a salary. Uh, who was it? Another guy, Elon Musk. I mean, I could name so many of them. They didn't pay. Now, what the article was saying is somebody like Jeff Bezos paid no taxes, but his net worth went up $100 billion. There's something wrong with that picture.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because what the IRS is doing is they're targeting the smallest of small businesses. Okay. Yeah, they look at those people, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, but they got expensive lawyers and accountants protecting them. Okay. So there's something seriously wrong with the whole system, but I'm not going to change the system. My job is to just educate people on what's going on and what to expect. And it's not pretty.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's the most important thing, that knowledge is an amazing thing. Gaining knowledge, first of all, is a huge part of it all, right? Is working with somebody like you that has that knowledge and expertise to be able to, again, the code says you're obligated to pay the least legal amount. And so when some people, then they flip it into numbers, right? Well, somebody paid 38% of their income and somebody else paid 16%. And they say, well, that's just not right. They paid 16. That's the rules. All they are is following the rules and the guidelines. Don't hate the playa, hate the rules, right? If you don't like the rules, or learn how to pay 16 versus 38, right?
Well, the good thing is a lot of the strategies that the wealthy employ, we can employ. And that's one of the things people don't understand. It's like, you just don't know what the rules are.
Right.
There's section 162, which defines what a business deduction is. And it's not what people think it is. A big question I get is, what can I deduct? And my answer is everything, unless it's obviously personal. You can't deduct dinners with your family.
Right.
Okay. But if your family's part of your business and you have dinner and you talk about business, that's a deduction. Donald Trump tried to write off $70,000 worth of haircuts, which is specifically disallowed. But he still took the deduction, arguing that it was a section 162 allowable deduction because he's on TV all the time. He's going to lose that. But, that's just one example.
Yeah, aren't there, under that code, aren't there 500 and, I mean, I remember the number at one time. Somebody said how many different things there were that were deductible, but it was in like over 500 or something, wasn't it?
So the thing is, it's got to be ordinary and it's got to be necessary for your business.
Okay.
That's the threshold. So as long as you could say, listen, this is an ordinary type of expense for my business, and it was necessary for me to run the business. So, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. So I tell them, it's not what can you deduct, it's what you can't deduct. You can't deduct haircuts, you can't get your nails done and deduct it. But, I had a tax attorney once I worked for. And she actually wrote off, she was, no, not a tax attorney, she was a divorce attorney. And she got a lot of her business from the beauty salon. She was writing off those trips to the beauty salon. She said, I don't care. This is where I get my business. I wouldn't go there if I wasn't getting business. So that's the approach you want to take. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you're targeted for audit, and that's where people get into trouble. When you're an S Corp, the IRS doesn't care about S Corps making 100 grand. They don't have time because the IRS looks at that as, well, they're incorporated, they must have an accountant.
Right.
And then when you have your,
that's why I say I think everybody should have a side gig or be part of,
oh,
some kind of operation that's a legitimate business, whether it be an affiliate program like we have with Be Connected, or whether it be a direct sale company of some sort. There's again, a legitimate reason to conduct business activities. A lunch, a dinner is a reasonable activity in pursuing a client, right? Trips are reasonable activities for pursuing a client. So again, all of a sudden, just because you have this opportunity to gain income from that side gig, you also have the opportunity to write off many of your.
Guess what? Now you need your car for business. Now you need your cell phone for business. Now you need your internet connection for business. Now you got to use a room in your house for business. So all of these personal expenses become business expenses. Now let me just, and the side gig thing, absolutely. Because especially in the beginning, you don't make money. Most businesses lose money the first couple of years, especially if you're taking stuff you already have and writing it off.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, if you have furniture, and let's say the furniture is worth $5,000, and you decide you want to make that your waiting room furniture, well, you get to deduct the $5,000. And this is all legitimate, 100% legal. But now, let me talk about the unintentional business owners, the people that don't even know that they're sole proprietors, the Uber drivers, my son-in-law that sells posters on the internet, and he's going to get a 1099 now because what was a hobby, legitimately a hobby, now the IRS is saying, oh no, you got to report this on your tax return. Well, guess what? I made him an S Corp.
Yeah.
And now everything that he's got a room where he stores everything, he can deduct his internet. So it opens up a whole range of things you can do. Now, if you start making a profit, there's a whole bunch of other things you can do that you can't do when you're a sole proprietor. You could hire family members. I mean, I can't even get into that, but there's a whole bunch of, and these are the things that wealthy people do.
Yeah, okay. The reality is that that's one of the things that I know I did when I went into the speaking business professionally and decided that was going to be the path I was on, speaking and training and coaching, was find a good small business CPA that has the expertise to understand all this information and then learn from them and listen to them. Novel concept, right?
That's, we teach our clients. Because they say, not knowing isn't a way to do business. You got, right. They always say you got to know your numbers. That doesn't mean I'm going to teach them how to be a bookkeeper or an accountant, but I'm going to explain to them the basic tax, like what you said. You're not obligated to pay the least amount. I'm sorry, Scott, but it's your right to pay the least amount.
Yeah.
And I teach people how to do that legally. I got one of my clients audited in 41 years. I wasn't a CPA, he was a college buddy of mine. He was a sole proprietor. He got audited. I had to go to the audit with him because I wasn't certified. What happened was, because he had all of his receipts, because I told him how to keep them. So everything was documented, but he also had a car mileage diary that I didn't know about. We didn't write off his mileage. we actually came out of that audit and he got a refund. I filed an amended return. So I think I must know what I'm doing if none of my clients got audited.
Especially over 40 years, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've handled audits, but they always came from somebody else's mistakes.
so how do you suggest people find the right person in their area, or is that something that you can help direct them with?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole network of accountants that do stuff that I don't do. I specifically work with new businesses that have no idea what they're doing, or people that just started a business and they say, I have no idea what they're doing, what I'm doing. And then we educate them. But, we have contacts with people that do not-for-profits, do certified audits, all over the country. And, I could explain to them who not to hire. It's easier to tell them who not to hire. If they're not responsive, if you go to their office and it's a mess, if their employees are all miserable, you don't want that person as an accountant.
That would be true. That would make a tremendous amount of sense. So how about Bedrock Business Builders? Tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing there.
Well, that was about 2 years ago. I decided to pivot away from doing, established businesses, contractors, trucking companies, and I basically walked away from those clients to work with the 25 million sole proprietors out there. And what we do is we give them an affordable alternative to not having an accountant. We start new businesses off with a $47 a month CFO package. And what that includes is all of their bookkeeping and all of their tax compliance. So if they get a letter from the government, we have a system. They just text it to me. I look at it because in 30 seconds, I could tell them what it is. And a lot of times it could be a scam from a company posing as from the government. A lot of times it could be just a notice. But I'm there because, I have a story about when I first started. I got a letter from New York State when I first got into accounting, that because I was driving an ice cream truck the summer before I graduated, and I got a letter from New York State. It had a big red sticker on it, tax warrant. And for 3 days, I didn't sleep. I was too embarrassed to ask anybody in the office what it was. It was really the IRS. I mean, the New York State just wanted a form saying that I didn't collect any sales tax. But I felt that. And, I polled people and I said, how do you feel when you get a letter? They're like, it's not a good feeling because it's usually not a check. It's usually a bill.
That would be true.
So, we started Bedrock to focus on those people, get them on track so that they might have a better chance at success. I've seen too many people start a good business and then get into tax problems for the wrong reasons. So it's really about education. We also run a mastermind. It's all about educating not just our clients, but the public. But what I really wanted to talk about, Scott, is what's in store, what the future looks like.
Sounds great.
And I could tell you based on history, in 2008, we had this financial bubble, right?
Right.
And the government had to spend all kinds of money. Well, in 2009, they went and hired 25,000 new employees. Okay, that lasted for 3 years. And then little by little, as people retired, they didn't replace them. Right now, with COVID, they are doubling their workforce. They're going to hire another 87,000 employees.
Wow.
I think they only have 85,000 right now. Now, the bulk of them are going to be revenue officers and revenue agents. So a revenue officer is somebody that audits you. A revenue agent is somebody that collects the money. Okay. That doesn't look good. So, you look at 2008, they hired all these people to collect money. That was the sole reason. Their plan is to collect $7 trillion over the next 10 years from people that aren't paying their taxes. And we're not talking about Jeff Bezos. We're talking about the people that made 30 or 40 grand that didn't have the money to pay their taxes. There's something wrong with that picture.
Tremendously wrong, for sure. So how do our listeners, battle that or prepare themselves for it?
Well, you book a chat with me. No, I'm kidding. I have a YouTube channel. I talk about all of this stuff.
Okay.
I do a workshop called Stealth Tax Strategies, and it has to do with becoming an S corp. The way to not get caught in that is to not get in trouble to begin with. And sole proprietors are the most likely to get targeted, and they're the least able to pay. And it's really a tragedy. They created the S Corp in 1958 because there was a big gap between corporations and sole proprietors. It cost a lot of money to be a corporation.
Right.
There's something called double taxation. So you had to be wealthy really to have a corporation. So you were either a corp or a sole proprietor. Sole proprietors get no legal protection, they get no tax benefits, and there was a whole political upheaval. And I think Eisenhower was president then. So they came up with this S Corp thing for small businesses. They said, now you're going to get the legal protection and there's no double taxation because the S Corp doesn't pay taxes. It flows through to the individual.
Right.
Well, guess what? They forgot to tell everybody. You go on the internet, there is nothing that tells about the benefits of S Corps. What they say is that sole proprietorship is the easiest way to run a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you don't have to do anything the IRS doesn't want you to do. Think about this. If 10 million of those 25 million became S Corps, what would that do to the Social Security system?
Oh, sure.
Because you make 20, that you're not paying income taxes if you only make 20,000. But you're paying $3,000 in self-employment tax. The Social Security system is already broken. So think about that. They don't want to tell people how to beat the system. You go on the SBA website, the IRS website, there is nothing out there that talks about what I'm talking about.
Totally agree with you. Again, this is something that we've presented to a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs along the way to be of service to them from an educational standpoint is just understand if you're a sole proprietor, it's in essence, you've got nothing. There's no protection, not trying to bring bad news to you and just telling you the truth.
It is the truth. And they don't find out until it's too late. It takes about 2 years for 18 months to 24 months for a return to get audited.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly worth learning about and considering becoming an S Corp or doing something to add the protections that are available to you. Again, nobody's trying to get you anything outside the rules. We're trying to teach you the rules. The good news is there are ways of protecting yourself and your business, your family, everything along with it. It makes sense to learn about it. Well, we're running pretty close on time here. How do people get a hold of you, Joe? And how can you help them along the way?
Okay, so if they want to go to my website, it's bedrockbusinessbuilders.com. If they want to book a chat with me, you just go to timewithjoe.com. And if they want to join my mastermind group is free. We meet on Saturdays at 2 p.m. and that's mastermindwithjoe.com.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining me here today and being able to share some of this information so that people can gain the knowledge that they need to stop making mistakes. So thanks for joining me here. And thank you, everybody who's joined us here for Scott Schilling Speaks. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time. Talk to you soon. God bless.